Jeff's off. Okay, there we go. Hey guys, hello. Welcome to our, what day is today? Friday. Oh my gosh, I lost track of time. Welcome to our Friday stream. We have a special guest with us today from massivelyop.com. We have MJ with us. MJ, can you hear us?
I can hear you. Hello.
Hi, how are you?
I'm doing pretty good. How are y'all doing?
Oh, we are busy, busy, busy. As usual, just another day here at Intrepid Studios. You may notice that Jeff is not sitting with us at the moment, and it's because he is at his station getting a build finished so we can do some live gameplay today on the stream after our Q&A with you, MJ.
Woohoo! That sounds good.
I know. As you may have seen and our viewers saw this Wednesday, we released our excuse me, our cinematic game trailer of the Predator class, and I believe in that he infiltrated the Metropolis and got a relic, and there's a little siege kind of thing going on at the end. Well, we're going to take you through the Metropolis today in-game with the Predator and just take a look around for about 10 minutes. And that's what Jeff is getting up and running. But MJ, you have me and Peter here, and we would love to hear some of the questions that you have for us.
You guys did block out like 5 or 6 hours for me, right?
Oh yeah, no, I think we did at least 6. Yeah.
Right.
Don't tempt us, Frodo. We could go for a long time.
Trust me, so can I. Start getting into a virtual world sandbox. Yeah, okay, we're in my land now.
Yes. Now you're speaking our language.
That's right.
All right, so okay, I've got to say that you can tell people are obviously pretty darned excited about your project, right? So. Well, you guys are like the Kool-Aid man punching through all of these different funding walls.
Oh, yeah. That's for sure.
I'll take that.
So,
speaking of Kool-Aid man, I think there's an ice cream truck.
There's an ice cream truck outside.
Yeah, I know. We should take a break on the stream and grab some. All right, sorry. Go ahead, MJ.
So you guys are trying to derail me. Look at that. Look at that. So you talked about the game being already kind of funded. You go into Kickstarter to get more, to make it bigger and all that stuff, right? So how exactly was it paid for date, and how are your goals looking, your worst case scenarios, and really, I want to know, where do you think this is going to end? You have so many days to go on your Kickstarter. What do you guys see? Are you just too blown away right now to have a number, or are you anticipating steps now?
Well, we definitely went into Kickstarter anticipating certain things. We had certain goals and objectives. As far as funding goes, I'm personally funding the project. It's a passion of mine. I have a lot of resources to ensure that our core viable product is completed. With the mechanics that we've discussed, the venture we're going on, and what we want to attain in the node system, the caravans, the open world, the sandbox, the server capacity, all those things are our core product. The reason we went to Kickstarter is, Kickstarter has kind of evolved as a platform. It went from a core capital standpoint of startup ventures to achieve what was necessary for them, and a lot of projects went in there, hinging on what they could perform with that crowdsourcing money. And today, I think it's kind of transformed a little bit. It still provides capital. It definitely assists in creating that product. But for us, it was important that with the nature of credibility that Kickstarter in the video game industry has suffered over the past several years, that it be shown through our project that there was a degree of production already in place, that there was a plan of action already determined to complete the product, and that whatever we raised in Kickstarter was going to be used to either hasten the production time or increase the scope of the project and make it bigger and better for certain systems that we wanted to include but didn't have budgeted for the core product. And in addition, another form that Kickstarter assists in is that community development aspect. I mean, it is a huge broadcasting platform specifically for communities that are invested in independent projects. I mean, there's no better way to tell an industry, hey, take a look at what we're doing and see how it resonates with the community than through crowdfunding. Because when you have a community that comes to support a project that is laying out a vision and goals that relates to what they want and it resonates with them and they show up in the form of funding, that communicates very well to the existing studios and industry out there. And I think that everyone involved in Ashes of Creation can kind of agree that the reason why our project, excuse me, I'm sorry, a little cough. The reason why our project resonates so well with this genre and the community is because we are hitting certain points that the industry has moved away from over the past several years. And there's no greater way to say, look, you guys moved in the wrong direction. This is where the community for the MMORPG genre wants to be. They do not want that pay-to-win aspect. They do not want the cash grab monetization. They do not want, you know, systems in place that take away from player agency. They want a project like Ashes of Creation. And I think that crowdsourcing allows us to drive that point home to them where it is most seen, which is in their pocketbooks, right? I mean, like, that's for big corporations that have giant boards, you know, they're always looking at the bottom line. And if their bottom line is not performing on most recent ventures and projects, it's for a reason. And it's because they're not producing the content that players want.
Right.
And, you know, having a studio that's run by a player, not an industry, you know, veteran, is something that I think sets us apart. You know, we have industry veterans here that are developing the project, but it's from the viewpoint, the standpoint of myself as a gamer.
Okay. So you're going to lead into this next bit a little bit. So you're talking a bit about staffing. So how is this search for staffing going? And some things like, oh, people are curious, what are the different leads bringing from their past game experiences? Especially, okay, this is not to cast any kind of a peller or a curse upon you guys, fine. But
yeah.
EverQuest Next, obviously,
yeah.
That was something really looked forward to. Some of those aspects feel like some of those anticipated things seem to be showing up in your game a little bit. What kind of things are the staff that you have now bringing to the table with this, and how is your search for more staff going?
Well, you know, part of developing both the experience and culture here at Intrepid Studios is making sure that our growth, excuse me, that's a dawnbreaker right across the screen, is making sure that our growth is timed appropriately and is done correctly, so that our team can communicate the way we're developing the project to new hires, to new people we bring onto the project. And you know, a lot of, I think we have 4 who are from Sony Online Entertainment.
I think so, yeah, right.
I think there's 4. There might be 5, but there's 4 or 5 who came from Sony Online Entertainment. Some of whom worked on EverQuest Next. The majority of them, however, worked on EverQuest 1, EverQuest 2, and you know, they come with, gosh, I don't want to get into like bashing another company or anything, but from what I understood as a gamer and having chatted with my team, a lot of the faults of the EverQuest Next debacle resulted from a management perspective. The developers, you know, no fault to their own. It was the management that really led to the demise, I think, of that project. And it goes towards something that I think a lot of people understand, which is too many chiefs, not enough right. Followers. Or
Sure. Right.
I was gonna say Indians.
Yeah.
I can say that.
Braves.
Right? That's okay.
Right.
Right, exactly. But you know, our people here on the team at Intrepid Studios have very a wide variety of backgrounds. And SOE and the EverQuest Next project, you know, we brought on board Jason Crawford, who, you know, worked at Sony Online Entertainment, worked at Sony Interactive, and has a lot of experience as an engineer, just as an amazing engineer. And a lot of what we're doing revolves around that back-end part of UE4 and doing our own custom networking code to achieve the types of things we want in the game. And he brings a lot of experience in that regard. When it comes to expanding, I think didn't we just post up our new ads for jobs actually yesterday and today and the day before? I think we put up, we're opening up 8 or 9 new positions, 8 or 9 new positions here at the studios. It's going to take us up to about 24 in the studios. And then in a relatively short time afterwards, we're going to be bringing on another, I would say within the next 3 to 4 months, another 10 personnel to bring us up to about 34, 35 in the studios. But you know, when we bring on board people, we're looking for them to have, and I don't like using this term, but AAA studio experience. We want them to come from a background where they've shipped a title that has that shows their passion both as a developer, as an individual who understands the MMORPG genre, the community and the development side, because MMORPGs are a completely different beast when it comes to creating a game. I mean, it is argumentatively the most difficult video game to produce. I think you know, it has so many different components to it. Oh, Jeff, welcome.
Hi, guys.
Hey, how'd that build go? Good.
We had some technical difficulties, but I think we're okay now.
Okay, good.
We're gonna have to change up a couple things we're planning on doing for the stream, but
Oh,
we'll just
okay.
take a quick pause after we're done with this interview.
Got it.
Okay, sure.
Okay, that sounds good. So something that MJ was asking was about the team and their experience at EverQuest. Do we have Jeff's mic on? Oh, let's bring Jeff's mic on. Okay, there we go. And kind of the experience that the team has. I know we have 4 or 5 people who came from SOE. And I was just explaining about how, you know, MMORPGs are such a huge project, and it's great to have a team that has the experience with MMORPGs specifically, because it is such a niche market in the gaming development industry, you know?
And it's just designing for an MMO is very different from designing from pretty much any other game, even multiplayer games like small, you know, 5-on-5 kind of multiplayer games, because you really have to think about the really big picture, and there's so many things that you just can easily forget to prepare for or to design for, and if you're not prepared for that, you're going to be surprised on launch day. So,
and I think that, you know, the 3-part components to our development team being, you know, art, design, and engineering, that we have people in key positions here at the studio who have vast experience in that. I mean, you yourself have been in the gaming design aspect of the industry for how many years now?
Oh God, it's been at least, it's going on 13 now.
13 years.
Yeah.
Mr. Baconator over there, you were back on, you were artist on what, Duke Nukem back in the day?
No, the console version.
On the console version?
Saints Row 2, some of my favorite games.
You know, we have, I made sure that when we were building this team, that one of the most important aspects for me coming into the industry, not having industry experience, but having gamer experience, was that I was able to rely on professionals in the industry who had specifically MMORPG experience, so that when I say, hey, I'd like to have this done, I can get a response and trust that response that either it can be done or can't be done.
Right.
Right? And I think that what we've laid out as our vision for Ashes of Creation are all things that really aren't innovative from a technology aspect, but just from a design aspect, like putting those pieces that already exist together in a way that shapes and forms what we're trying to accomplish when it comes to, you know, player agency in the game.
And being able to do it on that scale, right? Like that's you know, it's easy to talk, you know, buzzwords, but it's difficult to actually implement them. But you know, having that experience to draw from, having people to talk to, and people who've been through that before, you know, makes it a lot clearer on what you can and can't do, and how to get somewhere versus somewhere else.
Yeah.
All right, well, leading a bit into that, so I'm going to throw in some questions that the chat threw in a little bit before this started. So we're going to be bouncing off of that whole thing. You notice I'm kind of following a wave here. So first of all, someone's asking, is there any chance there will be a grappling hook type of utility so people can hide in the trees for ambushing?
Nice. I don't know about the trees, but there's definitely
I'm just imagining like a forest full of players,
have to be a really
like
dense
just
tree,
hanging out.
Right? Yeah, I couldn't do it in like a thin tree forest. But no, I'm just saying, there is for sure, I think, a grappling hook utility item that we're considering as a traversal mechanic for
when we
certain
first started
areas.
talking about utility skills, the grappling hook was the first one that came up.
Right.
So we're still working on the implementation of that, but it's definitely the direction we're going in.
Yes.
Okay, good. And that's so back into one of the systems that was really feeling a bit reminiscent of a system I was really looking forward to. Your guys' nodes resemble rallying cries a bit to me. Now, I see a lot of people, I think, are a bit confused about your node system. The politics and how each node is going to have kind of its own story going on around it and everything. How would you explain to someone exactly what the use of the stuff jumping across the screen? I need to not be watching because this is distracting.
That's the bacon.
That's why I kind of keep my eye level to the floor.
That's a good idea. So how would you explain these nodes? So a player comes in. How are players going to work together on building this node? Can they be kicked right out of a node? The node expanding, shrinking? How is the politics going to work in it? It's just, it's kind of a big idea, and it sounds really neat, but.
Well, okay. So I mean, we've done. For those of you who still are trying to grapple with with what the node system entails, we've actually done 2 parts to our 4-part series on nodes and how they work. It gives a great kind of overview on it. And I think combined, those 2 videos are roughly 16 minutes. I'll try to very quickly condense the concept of the node because I know we have a lot of viewers who have definitely heard what the node's all about. And just to give you a quick overview, everywhere in the world is undeveloped when you get into the game. And when you start moving out into the wilderness and taking civilization with you, and you're doing normal MMORPG activities such as gathering or questing or killing evil things and whatever you're going to do, as your player gains that experience, it also lends that experience to a node within the ZOI that you're present in. So a node exists and has a zone around it that's called its zone of influence, and anybody who's in that zone of influence, when they gain experience, the node gains experience as well. As a node gains experience, it advances in stages, from nothing all the way up to a metropolis. And in between, you have the village, you have the town, you have a camp, stuff like that. At every stage a node progresses, it will offer new quest lines. NPCs will appear and offer new shops and new services. It's going to offer housing. It's going to offer a political system that's driven by the players. It's going to increase its zone of influence as it advances in stages as well. So it's going to involve more influence over the world around it. It's going to affect events that occur in the open world as a reaction to civilization encroaching on its territory. There's a lot of, the node system is intricately developed into every aspect of the game so that you as a player, you have the ability to build up civilization, and then there's also an ability to tear down civilization and to redetermine the course of the server and opening up new storylines and new narratives that players have the agency to determine themselves. It's not just a static world you're going to exist in. It's a world you're going to create. And that's probably one of the foundational, the most foundational aspect of Ashes of Creation is allowing the players to determine the narrative of the server as well as determine the structure of the server itself. I would say that's...
No, that's as succinct as we can probably get. Again, we are going to have another video coming out in a couple weeks, probably on the nodes, and then after that, probably another couple weeks after that. But yeah, we understand that the node system can be a little bit hard to grok, but I think when it comes down to it,
what is grok?
The systems themselves are really simple, right? So if you
What is grok?
What it's like understand. It's like I get it. That's
I've never even heard
pulling
of
out
grok.
SAT words on screen.
Okay, I like it. It sounds like an evil warlord.
No.
Chieftain grok.
I understand this.
Okay.
So you can switch your nodes of influence, right? You could say, I'm not liking this, where this one's heading. I'm going to head to another part of the world, and I'm going to start exercising my XP gathering there.
Yeah, no, 100%.
Absolutely, that's exactly what it's intended to be done. Like you are not locked into a node that you started or helped to start. It's the world is about exploration and checking things out and changeability. So we totally foresee situations where you're hanging out on a node and whatever's happening there is just not for you, right? So then you go find another group of players that you better relate with, or that you go start working on some node that hasn't been developed at all. So there's a lot of choices there, and that's what we want to give players. There's a lot of choice.
You gave a perfect example, MJ. If you don't want to participate in that node's development, there is a giant world out there with many nodes that you can go and lend your expertise, your activity, your jumping jacks, if you want to do them, to develop that node.
Lend, man. I want to go take them over. What do you do?
Okay, well, that's a whole
That's
different
an option,
story.
too.
My
That's an
node,
option,
man,
too.
my node, yeah. So, yeah. So the whole idea of the politics going into the anyway, I could talk and ask things for hours and hours and hours. All right, now we're gonna slide over a little bit into talking about PvP because a lot of people will go, yes, open virtual world, yes, sandbox, yes, your decisions matter, and now there's PvP. So I'm serious because so many games just they don't do it right, and it seems to drive people out or kind of crush the whole idea of the game. One of your pillars is narrative, you know. So I guess my questions are leaning towards who is the audience for your game? Are you looking for sheep? Are you looking for wolves? Do you want sheepdogs? Do you want
Are there such thing as sheep wolves?
Sheep wolves?
and what kind of ideas
Wolves in
do
sheep's
you
clothing.
have in place for the inevitable influx of some notorious gank squad that want to hit a server and totally dominate and destroy things?
Well, okay. So what type of player do we want? You know, our game is designed for a PvX mentality, right? It is a lot of both worlds, and what we just described in the node system as being a way to develop the world, the second pillar being meaningful conflict, is our catalyst for change. So if if a world has nodes that are starting to get developed and citizens start claiming areas, and you know, they have their freeholds out in the realm, and their castles that have been taken, and dungeons that lay claim to, all those types of things. PvP in our game has meaning to it based on the systems that it's involved with. So when we have castle sieges, when we have node sieges, when we have caravans, when we have battlegrounds and arenas, there's a purpose for that performance on the player's end in participating with those events, and it has real world effects. You know, it's not just a gank, but we're not creating a gank box. We're not creating a murder box. There is a flagging system that's in place that highly disincentivizes just outright murder. We, however, do want to see conflict erupt, and we do want to see that conflict have a system to see out what the result will be.
Yeah, the game, the whole, I guess, design of the game really doesn't function too well unless there's a way for players to destroy it. And that's where the PvP comes in, where you know, if a node is built, that's cool, and then another node is built, that's cool. Eventually, all the nodes that can be built will be built, and then our game is just a static theme park at that point, right? We need the ability for people to have conflict,
right,
to have a reason to tear things down, and to pit players against each other. It's definitely a part of the game. We realize people are, you know, concerned about it, but again, I don't think we're going to see guilds coming in and just wrecking a bunch of newbies, because that's going to be hard to do.
They won't be able to do now.
It's the flagging system does a lot to prevent that. Yes. There will be people who do gank other people. It's going to happen. They're going to find ways to do it. But it's not going to be widespread. And we're going to do a lot of testing to make sure it isn't. You know, the numbers we're using right now are just test numbers. But
alphas and betas,
you know, alphas and betas will bring us closer to something that is close to perfect. It will never be perfect. There will always be situations where you find yourself, you know, on the wrong end of a sword, but that's also part of the game.
But the best way we can at this stage say is our intent is to make sure that Ashes of Creation is not a gank box.
Right. We want every interaction to be meaningful.
Yes, so. Absolutely. And another thing that's important is that in our design philosophy, risk versus reward is an extremely important component when it comes to satisfaction and achievement. And if there are systems in place, both from an economic standpoint and a development standpoint, that involve no risk, there's very little satisfaction gained from players. That's when, in our opinion, players become detached and it becomes a stagnant storyline that has no
There's also
evolution.
No game there, right?
Exactly.
Like, you know, it's important that there is a game, and part of that game comes from the conflict with other people.
And that doesn't mean, I mean, it's very important to note that our belief is that in order for PvP to matter, you must have a grade A+ quality PvE world. I mean, you have to have some epic PvE content in order for that PvP to even matter, and vice versa, right?
And I don't think we view, like, in the preface of the question, with the 3 buckets of players being wolves, sheep, and sheepdogs, I think that we don't view those as isolated buckets.
Right.
Like, that is the population of the server, right? Those people are going to work together. We want them to work together. We want them all to have a place on the server to do things.
Yeah, I think that's a very good point, actually. It's important to note that in the MMORPG genre, as you said, there's not just 3 distinct buckets. Right. You know what I mean? Very rarely do you actually see a majority of players fall on one end of that spectrum. Instead, majority of people kind of coalesce into the middle of that, where they want to experience a little bit of both, or have the opportunity to at least experience a little bit of both.
And also, like, you got to think about, like, and again, how this is going to play out is entirely theoretical, but, like, there's nodes, right? And these nodes provide an identity for people. That's my town. I helped build that. I own a home there. Like, these are places that we belong to, and these are a community, right? These are people who are working together to accomplish something. And that's going to provide a very different environment than a lot of solo people running around trying to accomplish their own individual goals, right? There's always going to be a greater goal in mind for any given group of people.
Are you drinking this?
I'm not.
Oh, thank you.
Have it.
So yes, that's our PvP discussion.
I hope that was a good answer. I don't. Sometimes we start rambling and it's hard to tell. But
Well, some folks had some questions about combat. So, questions about, like, how will mob tagging work? Will it be a first tag, or is it everybody who's participating is getting XP? How will looting work? And then questions on the feel of combat and cooldowns or no cooldowns, or.
Those are some pretty specific questions.
yeah, as far as the whole tag system, we haven't really nailed down how we're going to do it. We know where we want to go.
Right. Those specific things, like, as time goes on over the next couple of months, we'll probably be releasing developer blogs that kind of hone in on specific questions like that, specific mechanics like that. I think that another thing that's important to note is, like, you know, we're well aware of what kind of things people want to see with the combat system, and it is one of the most important systems in the game outside of the grand systems that are kind of overarching systems. Combat is probably the most intimate system for a player.
It's probably the system you're interacting with the most.
Absolutely, yeah. And we want to make sure. Ooh, there's our.
That's beautiful.
That was pretty. It is probably the system that the players are most interested to see done well, and we are most focused on doing well.
Right.
Which is why, you know, we're a little bit hesitant to show it in early production, because when you show a system like the combat system to the majority of players, they're not going to look at it and say, "Oh, this is pre-alpha state." You know, they're only 5% into its production.
Right.
They're going to look at it and say, "Oh, this is a finished product."
Right.
Right.
And there's some rough edges.
And there's the rough edges, but we're very focused on creating an excellent combat system. I mean, as we said, it's the most intimate system for a player. It's the one they're most interactive with throughout their gameplay. So, you know, we want to make sure we nail down that system to a very finished, polished product before we really showcase it.
Yeah. I mean, we can speak to some of those things, right?
Right,
we can
absolutely.
say, like, as far as combat goes, there will be cooldowns. That is something that will exist. There's not going to be a lot of standing around and casting something. We're not going to root people very much. It's going to be a very mobile kind of game. It's going to be fairly fast-paced. We don't want it to be quite at the frenetic level. You know, we want it to feel fast enough that it's fun, but not so fast I can't control it. We also don't want it to be really slow and ponderous either.
Absolutely.
So these are all words that we're
Skill's
using
going to play a very important role in combat.
Right. Yeah. Positioning and timing and you know, maintaining the correct distances and that sort of thing.
Okay.
Battlefield control is going to be pretty big.
Nice. So this one might be a little too specific too, but this one was from the community. They were interested. And when you were talking about the spyglass mentioned as the utility skill, the ability, now was that going to be something that is focused more on, like, primarily or only a rogue, or are other classes going to be able to gain access to these type of utility skills?
There will be a wide variety of utility skills across classes. Each class is going to have its own kind of way of doing that.
And its own niche, like what a class excels at in regards to utility. Right.
So the spyglass will be probably unique to the rogue. I don't see us giving it to anybody else except for maybe the ranger. But yeah, it's we want to kind of use the utility to help create identity for the classes, and to give everybody a role in deciding how we progress as a group and what role everybody has. It's not going to be just, am I the tank, but it's also going to be like, how do we navigate this area?
And there's a wide array of utilities, and those utilities relate to the wide array of hazards that exist within the world, right? And it's one thing to have skills and classes associated with combat roles. It's another thing to have skills and classes associated with adventuring roles, right? We want to get back to that feeling, that sense of adventure.
Adventure and exploration.
And exploration, exactly. And that's what those utilities really lend themselves towards, is providing that role for certain classes, yeah.
Okay, I'm just going to throw this plug in for another community member who is saying, as long as you've got a good fishing system.
We talked about fishing
this.
last
Yeah, as long as we will have a good fishing system. I think it's all three of us.
We're all
fishers,
fans
so
of fishers. Yeah, exactly. So
it's definitely going to be something. Fishing is going to be OP. So
it's going to whoa.
And I've grabbed a couple from chat as they've gone by. So this one is back to the PvP questions. Have you considered adding a system allowing specific guilds to enter a war or conflict mode only with other guilds out in the rest of the world? Like,
yes,
we do have a guild war system. Absolutely.
Yeah, where two guilds declare against each other, and they are both considered combatants against each other, but only against each other, unless other people.
And they're not flagged in the open world for that. They're just considered combatants against each other.
Right, against each other.
Yeah. And there will be objectives potentially within that war. There could be surrender mechanic. There can be a victory condition mechanic. We're guild. Guild. I lost my train of thought. I forget now. I'm sorry.
I don't know where you're
Guilds are
going
great. They're huge.
Oh, that's terrible.
No, you said 2 guilds there. Now, one of my favorite memories of all time is actually the war ring that we had in Star Wars Galaxies, where we had 10 or so guilds actually on this entire ring. So are you going to be able to do it more than just 2 guilds?
So the question would be, and we're discussing this, whether or not that guild war mechanic could extrapolate into an alliance war mechanic as well.
Right.
Because we will have alliances in the game, and there could be a mechanic that involves a war between the alliances.
Right.
Yeah. We're
and it also,
that.
guilds can have wars against more than one other guild, too. So you could have 3 directional wars and that kind of thing. So.
Fun. Okay. So now, I've been getting some questions from folks about endgame rating kind of things. What can you say about that? What kind of ideas do you have for those? Or are you thinking there's no such thing as endgame? It's just going to continue to move forward.
So endgame is a bad word to me. I have strong feelings that the whole game should be fun, right? It shouldn't be this race to an end game where the fun actually starts. So we've got a lot of focus on making a lot of this stuff extensible throughout your entire play session. That being said, I mean, we are going to have raids. We're going to have raids at every level. There's going to be a strong focus on epic content that takes a lot of people to overcome. And it's not just going to be, one event that one guild gets to experience, but that multiple people can experience.
Right. And I think the most important reason as to why endgame is a bad term for us is because the way that Ashes of Creation is structured as a game is so that there's content that's constantly being revealed to you based on the decision of the community and server.
It's more about the evolution of the server than just hitting max level and then going off to the raid system and never touching the rest of the game again.
Yes.
We want to try to maintain relevancy throughout, the entire world, so that, the first zone you start in, hopefully you'll be seeing it over and over again. It's not just going to be something that you play in for 10 minutes and then go off to greener pastures. There's always going to be a reason to explore and adventure everywhere. And that includes raiding, and that includes dungeoneering, and that includes a lot of the big world bosses that we have planned. So there's going to be a wide breadth of things to do. We don't want people to get bored. We want we want there to be different things for people to do every day because, you know, what you want to do every day changes. You know, you might log in one day and want to just do Battlegrounds for a half hour and then be done with it. Or you might want to go and work on your crafting for 2 hours and then be done with it. I mean, that should change every day, and we're going to have lots of different things to offer to kind of fill that those needs.
Right.
I kind of like this question that I saw scroll by a little bit ago. Do you guys have any Storybrick-like system planned or in-game? Something that NPCs are going to react to players differently or anything like that?
So Storybricks was a very ambitious project, and we are not going to be quite that ambitious. We do have a system in place for our quests that is going to allow branching on the local level, so the individual player, and then on the global level, so the server itself will actually be experiencing stories in different ways depending on what players are choosing. As far as, you know, having roving bands of orcs that decide, oh, our food is low, so we must go, you know, running around and find food, and that creates, you know, a story that players get into. We probably won't go that detailed, but we do have events. And events are sort of based around our nodes where stuff similar to that will happen, but in a little bit more structured manner. So that we can actually tell a story about it. The difficulty with having the roving band of orcs that, you know, has its own AI that's deciding, okay, the food here isn't any good, so we're going to move over here and harass this group over here. Like, it's cool conceptually, but it's difficult for us to tell a story around. So, so events are going to be the main drivers, and it's going to feel maybe similar to what Storybricks wanted to do, but it's not going to be that exact system.
I think it'll feel similar without the cumbersome design aspect of Storybricks.
Yeah, I mean, if that came out next, it would have been brilliant.
Right. But I think, like, for example, I mean, if you talk about how, you know, a node might develop in an area, and that zone has structured events that are designed to react to the development of certain types of buildings and or the development of the node stages, and then it will spawn a horde of zombies that will move towards the stables to, you know, eat the horses and kill the stable, and that disables the stable for a period of time. I mean, those are easily done from a design perspective. That's nothing like what is needed for, you know, but it can still give that feeling.
Right, and that's something that is our goal throughout this whole process, is to make the world feel reactive, to make it feel like, oh, there was a consequence to us building this node here. You know, there are things that are happening around it that are contextual, but we're building those in to those areas manually. It's not being generated procedurally, and it's not, you know, dependent on an AI. So, yeah. And actually, we might have to go to the video soon.
Yeah, we should. What time is it? Uh-oh, MJ, I think we might have run over a little bit.
Can we do one last question then?
We have one last question.
Oh,
one last question.
That's only like half the question. I told you I had a million of them. So actually, you were talking about as the nodes advance and you're given more tasks and stuff to do. Are anything resembling like lots of dailies? That's kind of a. I don't know if I'm setting you up for something or not here, but will there be a lot of like
we
just
hate them.
little daily things that you've got to grind out over and over and over for whatever purpose to build up or what have you?
So we never want to make you feel like you're grinding something.
Right.
Obviously.
We don't want the game to feel like work. Right.
That's a failure.
And dailies have their place, and there's a good reason for them.
Right.
But when they're the same thing over and over again, it starts to get really repetitious.
Absolutely.
And when the only consequence of doing them is you get, you know, some alternate currency that you can use to build a sword, you know, 3 weeks hence if you do it every day, you know, it starts to feel like work. It doesn't feel like you're doing anything. Yeah. So that's our event system's actually broken. Well, so there's the narrative, there's events, and then there are tasks. And tasks are kind of what fill in that hole right there. They're the low narrative things, but they're sort of like stuff that's happening around the node on a given day.
And they serve a purpose. And they're not tasks that are repetitive every single day, the same thing. They're more along the lines of like something has happened in the world,
I need to go do something about
Exactly.
it. If I don't go do something about it, something negative happens.
Exactly.
Or the reverse,
Or,
right?
yeah.
Something cool happens. If I don't take advantage of it, I don't get to take advantage of the cool thing.
Right.
But
we don't want you to be a zombie at your computer, dying to log in to do your every single day daily. That's
Right.
the same exact thing over and over. Like
And feeling that stress of like, oh God, if I don't log in today, I'm not going to get that token,
Right.
and now I have to wait 2 more weeks before
watching
I
your
can finish it.
wrist. Am I
Right.
going to miss out? It starts
Doing
at
it again.
noon.
Doing it.
No.
Oh,
Listen,
time. Okay.
Well, thank you guys so much for answering all of these questions and for
Thanks, MJ.
making this game for us. There is a lot of hype and a lot of excitement for this and what you guys are proposing to bring to us. So,
Well, thank you for joining us today, MJ. We absolutely know there's a lot of hype out there. I think that it's kind of contagious. It comes from the office. It started here.
Yeah.
And everyone here is really excited, and we're really happy to see that everybody out there is excited too, because it means a lot to us.
Yeah, I mean, we're going to keep moving forward with this, and
Right.
we're going to make it to the finish line.
Absolutely.
So
Beyond.
beyond.
To
the finish
infinity.
line and beyond.
Oh, the finish line. I like that.
Yeah.
Thank you, MJ. We appreciate it.
So much.
thank you all. You have a wonderful day and get back to work soon. Show us lots of stuff.
Take care,
you.
MJ.
Bye-bye.
All right,
Okay, so we're
guys.
going to have to go offline for a very brief second.
Okay. Well, in the middle of it?
Well, we'll just show the screen, right, Michael?
Which
Yeah,
screen?
I mean, I just figured we just go to the title screen and
Right.
do what we need to do. Otherwise, I'm just going to
Okay. That sounds good. Okay.
So we'll be
So
back
hang tight.
in like 1 minute.
We'll be back in 1 minute with some in-game live playing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So hang on.
1 second.